Hey there, what is up you guys? I am Jerry Lai and welcome back to my sports photography channel. For those of you joining me for the very first time, I currently serve as the Director of Content and Photography at USA Today Sports. I've been lucky enough to have been a photojournalist for the past 16 years, and my goal for the channel is to help you become a better sports photographer. If you think that I can help you out, hit the like button and subscribe. So today I thought it would be a good opportunity to do another Q&A session. And the reason that is because, well, I have plenty of time on my hands. I recently received special permission to travel to Japan, and at the time of filming this video, am under a strict hotel quarantine. Don't worry guys, I'm not sick, but I do have to stay in this room for a few days to follow local health guidelines. But what that means is I now have plenty of time to work on personal projects like continuing my studies of Japanese or working on YouTube videos like this one today. So let's just get started. The first question that I will answer is an extremely common one that I receive, and that is, what lenses do I use to shoot sports? And of course the usual follow-up to that is, what lenses should I, aka you the viewer, use to shoot sports? And well, that's not a super duper easy one to answer. But here's the short version. The minimum kit that I bring to a game is one that consists of two camera bodies, one of which is equipped with a lens of at least 400 millimeters of reach, and the other with a 70-200 f2.8. This is an extremely practical sports action kit, as it will give you probably about 90% of the shots and coverage that you'll use at a normal game. Now, I will also have in my bag with me some kind of wider lens like a 24-70, especially if I know there will be a post-game celebration that I could get close to the players. Here's the problem with that kit, however. It is extremely expensive and realistically probably not super practical for everybody out there to acquire. Even a lot of staff photographers don't have the luxury of having that kind of arsenal. So now for the better answer, and one that really fits the core theme of my channel. Having great gear, or having a lot of great gear, is really just a luxury. It's not the end-all be-all to becoming a great sports photographer. Think of what you have in your kit already. You could probably squeeze a lot of mileage out of your current camera, especially if you know the ins and outs of it. Really know its strengths and weaknesses. What are its ISO and autofocus limitations? Additionally, how well do you know the sports you are shooting? By studying the game and knowing the key players in each team, you will get the edge in how to position yourself correctly for the peak moment. Knowing what photo positions are best for capturing a certain type of shot is also very important. Now, if you really want to get down the rabbit hole of sports photography, you could click the videos tab on my channel page and really dive into a lot of these topics in way more detail. But before you do that, you should finish this video. So on to the next question. A few weeks ago, a viewer named Micah asked me, when you are shooting batters, do you just shoot high-speed frames per second over and over? Seems like you'll fill up a memory card really quick. And to be honest, the answer is yes and yes. It unfortunately just comes with the territory of shooting baseball for a newspaper or a wire service. Because we do have to get the key shots of the key hits in every game. Of course, you're not going to know what pitch that's going to come on, so you literally just have to blast away at every batter. Needless to say, this yields in an extremely low keeper rate in baseball. You get a lot of swings and misses and a lot of foul balls. As a result, it's not unusual to end up with several thousand actuations per game. As a photographer working on deadline, or even if you're a team photographer that works for a school, you do have to be pretty disciplined about deleting out these junk frames as you go. Otherwise, you end up wasting a lot of time and storage space on frames that'll never see the light of day. All that said, between all the wasted batter photos and all the standing around that happens in baseball, it does yield some nice action frames and some great emotion. but it's still not my favorite sport to cover. So that leads me to question 3. What is my favorite sport to shoot? And this answer is probably going to surprise all of you out there, but it's tennis. So why tennis? Because it sure seems a lot like baseball. Aren't there going to be a lot of wasted frames? Well, that is true, and especially on like big tournament days when I'm shooting from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., I do take a lot of pictures. And it wouldn't be unusual on days like that to end up with 10,000 actuations. 10,000. But do you know why it's my favorite? It's because on the surface it looks like it should be a super easy game to shoot. But in reality, it's a very difficult one to execute, both mentally and physically. And I really like that challenge. I say that it can be a super easy sport to shoot because you could just plop yourself down in a seat like this, put the hammer down, fire away, and just crank out the photos. But will they be any good? No, they'll be crap. Your backgrounds will be busy, and the ball will be all over the place. That said, I understand there are situations where you're going to have to sit in a single spot and not move, like for bigger matches and big name players. But if you think about the way tennis is played, matches take about 90 minutes at the bare minimum and can be up to 5 hours in length for those epic 5-setters. So you really have a lot of time to nail that perfect shot and wait for that moment. Wait for the marshals and linesmen to move out of the way so that you have clean backgrounds. You could try timing your shutter presses for that perfect ball toss photo. You also can pay attention to the score so you know who's going to give you the best reaction based on the ebbs and flows of the match. Okay, so now you're starting to see why I like it and why I view it as a thinking man's game to make good sports photos. But what about the other aspect? So let's kick this on up a notch. The thing I really like about tennis, especially in those venues where you have some higher grandstands, is that you could get really creative with the lines on the court and the shadow cast by those stands. Now, it does get extremely tiring physically chasing the sun by climbing up and down all those stairs, but trust me, the results are dramatic and spectacular. Okay, so on to the next question. Kenneth asked, at what point on a football pitch can I shoot a full player's body shot without having to crop in on the football player? Now, even though Kenneth was specifically asking about football, or soccer in the US, this answer will apply to all sports. A good rule of thumb for how far you could place yourself away from the action and still get a usable frame with crop is 10 yards of distance for every 100 millimeters of focal length. In other words, if you have a 400 millimeter lens, you could place yourself 40 yards from the action. But if you only have a 70 to 200, you should position yourself closer, up to 20 yards away. Now what about if I have a newer camera that has 40, 50, or even more megapixels? Surely this will change the equation, right? Well, not exactly, because you run into a problem with depth of field. In several of my previous videos, you learned that it's very important to isolate your subject in sports photography. You can very easily do this with a long lens, like in this photo shot at 400mm and f4. Only the picture is sharp, the background just melts away. Now this is an extreme example, but this is the same picture from the same game shot at 24mm, also at f4. It's an awesome scene setter, but you can't crop into this photo. For one, this is shot with a 1DX, so you just don't have enough file size to punch in at that level of detail. But let's suppose that I had shot with a gigapixel camera and could crop in that extremely. It still would not be as nice of a photo, because when you take a photo at that wide of a focal length, everything in it will be sharp. So if you try to crop in, you'd be able to identify the faces on all that photo, as well as the picture. It'd be like a big Where's Waldo photo. So the point of the photo is, your camera's megapixel count doesn't really change the equation on how far or how close you need to be away from the action. The focal length of your lens will determine that. So remember, 10 yards for every 100 millimeters of reach. Alright guys, I might not look it, but quite honestly, I am completely beat and still jet lagged to heck. So I think that's going to put a wrap on today's video. That said, I do really enjoy making these Q&A videos, and I plan on doing another one when I return here in July and August for the Olympics. If you have any questions that you want to ask me that you might want me to answer on this channel, just leave it down in the comment section below. Alternatively, you can DM me on Instagram at JerryTLAI or send me an email. At the very least though, at least hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks again for watching today. I will see you all again in a couple of weeks. Thanks and take care. Good night. Oyasumi.